Welcome everyone to another episode of Real Estate Deli. I'm your host Mando, Money Making Mando on IG. Thank you again for being here. Here's where we cut through all the noise and deliver actionable insights straight to you and make the information the star. And today we have a star here again. Welcome, Anne McNamara. How are you?
I'm great, Mando. Lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for showing up. We've made a kind of instant connection. I think our your glasses and my shades kind of drew ourselves to each other. We were in a retreat maybe a week and a half ago, and I think our glasses, our shades, and your glasses attracted to each other, and that was like kind of our first introduction, and we've been cool ever since. And so, Anne, tell us your story. Tell us about your journey in real estate and how's it going.
Well, my journey depends on how far back you want to indulge me.
It's on you.
I suppose it started. I grew up in Ireland, and my parents got religion, and so Ireland it's a default Catholic, and they became Protestant. And as part of that, they packed me off to boarding school in England, which was like packing you off to enemy front lines as far as I was concerned.
Wow.
Yeah. So I really struggled with that. And I remember there was a moment when I thought, you know what, I can really rebel. It's actually sitting in a tree with my bags packed below, about to run away. And I was thinking, I could really this is the point where I could really make a mess of my life, or I can just take control and play the game and get what I want out of it. And I took my bag, got out of the tree, took my bag and went back, broke back into the boarding school. I thought, I will put up with this. I'll put up with this. Am I allowed to swear? Is this a sweary one or an unsweary one?
Yeah, we could do whatever.
Okay. So I'll put up with this shit for another while. And then I I eventually took myself out of there, took myself off to a better free school, lived by myself, and then got myself into university. And I studied sort of a real estate degree in university. And then I graduated to a big fat recession. And in the meantime, I was also getting really fed up with the government, and I wanted to do some social change. So to cut a long story short, I spent the next 10 years working in inner cities, which is my first real step into properties, because it got me into buying inner city properties, working with homeless drug users, people who are really on the margins, and helping them to move off the streets into good homes, good health, good jobs, good life. And we did that mainly through selling them a magazine. We sold them the magazine for 30 pence, and they sold it for £1, and they kept that 70 cents. And then they built from there. And then we had a whole load of wrap around services like drug treatment and accommodation and training and all that kind of stuff. Like we were talking before, art, dancing, hairdressing, the lot. And it helped a lot of people. We worked with about 1,400 every year.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that I spent 10 years doing that. And I was really sort of connected with, sort of looking back, I think it was a sort of a community development that always came around city centre buildings. So everywhere we went, we tried renting city centre buildings, and nobody wanted to rent them to us. So eventually we had to work out how to buy them. So we used every sort of creative method under the sun to buy them. And then it sort of went from there. When I was kind of burnt out after 10 years, and one of the guys I would always be hassling for money, sponsorship or whatever, approached me and said, we are trying to do these big public-private partnerships, and they were about revitalizing towns. So the government was putting money in and wanted the private sector to put money in. It could be revitalizing towns through redevelopment of sports centers or health centers or the whole town centers or whatever it is. Would I help them on the team? So I did, and I ended up turning that into a business for the next 10 years. And we were sort of a consultant with these guys, putting teams together, leading on bids. And over the next sort of 16, 17 years, we helped private sector partners win about $60 billion worth of government contracts.
Amazing. That's amazing work. And then you translated that into the States.
Yeah, so I'm only in the States. I'm only in Florida for a couple of years, but it sort of brought me back to my roots of I want to do what we call urban regeneration in the UK and what's called revitalization here. And all my sort of drive to do this, what I really was fed up with doing it in really big teams that was sort of government led or private, big business, private sector led, was the small person is always, they're always forgotten about. No matter how good the intentions are, they're either like bought up for minimum money, you know, compulsory purchased if they're in the way, or, you know, it never works. It rarely works out for the small person. It works. You have to have long-term patient capital. I thought I want to get back to basics. I want to buy buildings, do them up, hold on to them long term, put the right uses in those buildings, and I want to do it in partnership with good people. So I started to do that, bought my first one, found my first town, because it's really important the town you choose, bought my first building, and have two more. They're not quite under contract, but they will be soon.
And how do you choose your town? Let's say wherever you're at now. How did you come up with those metrics?
Well, what's really good about this, and I'm really grateful that I did do some, you know, I was sort of educated in it. There are criteria that you can apply. I mean, very basically, the town has got to be connected geographically. It's very, very rare that you can pull off revitalizing a town that's in the middle of nowhere. It has to have decent infrastructure, as in sewage and water. Like if you don't have sewage, you just can't do everything on septic. You can't do anything at scale. You know, so basic things like that. It needs, these places, whatever they tell you, they will never have. They rarely have good leadership. So, you know, like connectivity is really important. But you need to have not entirely dysfunctional leadership. You need some glimmers of hope in the leadership. You need a community that is not so beaten down that they don't have any faith. The community is really important. You know, you can just forget it if you think you're going to come in and do something and that'll make a difference. It won't. You have to have a community that's kind of waiting, and there's still some hope left there. And the other big thing for me is it's got to have nice inventory. You know, decent buildings, not so big that they intimidate you. And, you know, you need a fortune to do it. So you can sort of, you know, take a small one, see how you get on, maybe take a big one, bring some people in, do a bit more.
Okay, so this is kind of then where your experience helps out in identifying these said neighborhoods and classes and infrastructures that you can then move forward, let's say, with a project, because you've been there, right? You kind of done these things on the back end. Because I was always wondering, how do you analyze that? Knowing a little bit about your backstory and what you're doing, I would wonder, like, what's the process, right? Like how, right? Just honestly. But I guess now.
And it's always a risk, Mando. It's always a risk. Like, best lesson I learned on this front was there were some really cool towns around the edge of Manchester, and huge big warehouses, you know, the old industrial stuff, gorgeous red brick stuff. They looked good, and I was determined that there must be something that could be done with them. It took a long time and a lot more than me. I wasn't investing in there, but there was a lot of government agencies sort of in and out, and there was finally a conclusion. We can't help them. The big town was so big. It was providing so many of the services that's kind of meant that the smaller towns wasn't, besides like neighborhood cafes and sort of stuff, there wasn't really the call even for a cinema, because the big town was only down the road. And the main thing was the buildings were so big, like warehouse, old mills, you know, or so uncool, like crinkly sheds, that really it would have had to been what do they call it, like a vanity project. you'd have to have been loaded and done something with it, and you'd never made any money because you just couldn't make it work. So eventually that was a really good lesson for me to go, yeah, they're great, they're lovely, but not in our lifetime. That's not to say they won't come back in another lifetime.
Yeah. Again, that type of profile didn't kind of fit the model, let's say. So let's get into some of what you're doing now. You have a project now, I believe, in Jacksonville, right?
Yeah, so I did this exercise and I went to see probably about 30 towns around Florida and Georgia.
Wow.
And lots of towns I kind of almost fell in love with. I've got loads of, like you see some of the photos there, I've got photos all around the house of these falling down buildings that I think are gorgeous. And it took a while to find one. I also wanted one close to home, but I nearly moved to Georgia for a project and I didn't. And I'll tell you why I didn't, because I made a phone call. I love the buildings. It was a little bit remote, a little bit small, good location. Well, two things. One was too many of the buildings were owned by one person who I don't think wanted to really sell. He was that sort of wanted his cake and eat them. He wanted them to magically make money, but he didn't really want to sell them. So that was one thing. And the other thing was I made a phone call to the city town manager, and she was so passive aggressively negative. I just thought, I'm out of here. So it was not worth moving to Georgia. So I did that same exercise in lots of different places. And I found a town about 30 miles away from here called Palatka. And, it's a risk. There's a lot of buildings owned by a little group of people. It's a quiet town. But what I like about it is it's got good inventory. It has got some political change agents, and it's definitely got the infrastructure, and it's got enough change makers to make it a potential benefit. And so I bought a building there. I'm gutting it. I'm putting in 3 apartments and a retail space. And I've got 2 more that I have. All I can say is I've got my eye on them.
Yeah, so I've noticed you've put a lot of work into this. This is a big undertaking that you said you visited in Georgia and I guess in Florida as well. So you've been traveling and getting in touch with different communities and seeing the pulse, right? Because you got to see the pulse of a town and see where they're at. So that's a lot of things that you have to identify to see if it's viable, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be that much work. I think we're tripping over these towns. Part of it was just the fear of, am I going to make a mistake?
Yeah.
But there are some of these towns were in great shape, and I thought, I'm just too late to the party. Like DeLand was in great shape, Cocoa Beach in Florida, great shape. Lots of improvements to be done, but I like the earlier stages. And I like the earlier stages because I like the long-term hold and I like the ROI, capital growth.
So let's get into this said project that you have now. Let's dive in a little bit to this project that you're going on now. Where's it at? Have you started?
Yeah, so I bought it in August on seller finance. So I put he wanted 250. I got it for 200. I say I put 40,000 down, but most of that was paying debts off, so tax, agent, there was something else, and a bit of money to the couple who were separating. And then I'm struggling without my team. I don't have a team, so I had to find an architect. So this is another thing that drives me insane about Florida, is because it's mixed use. Even though it's only just about 3,000 square foot, which is just like a big house, you have to have a commercial GC, or an engineer, or ideally both. So I had to go and get that. Got somebody, and we're nearly through permitting. So I think we will have permits by next week.
Okay, so now you're ready to break ground, let's say, and start. So you're doing a lot of reconstruction. Is it a what type of? Is it a full gut, a cosmetic, or?
Yeah. So we retained the floor and we replaced the roof and retained the walls. And the front facade will come off. It's only the slip bricks, not the real. It's concrete, thank God, because I know and understand concrete. um, so it is a complete gutter. Not that there was anything worth retrieving in there. It wasn't a historic anything.
And what's the vibe? What's the pulse you're getting from the town? Let's say, since you're doing small towns, everyone kind of probably knows what's going on, right? I'm assuming. And what's the vibe? How are they being receptive? Or what's the
Very,
pulse?
very interesting, Mando, because you just do your thing. You think nobody but the next door neighbors notice. And I was out with Birdie the other day, and
Hi,
I
Bernie.
yeah, no, I've been in and out this man's shop, but I've never introduced myself. And I just said, "Oh, I bought. It's called the Old Sound Garden." So I bought the Sound Garden. They said, "Oh, congratulations, welcome," and all the rest. Which everybody's been lovely. Then he started to tell me about how oppressed they feel by the handful of landowners or building owners who just won't do anything, and how grateful they are that somebody is coming in and doing something.
Wow.
I know, interesting. He introduced me to a lovely word called peons. He was talking about the peons and the powerful. We're the peons, as in he's the peon,
Yes.
the sort of underdog, and the powerful just sit around doing nothing. And I'm like, I know, and I was like, I have kind of banked on the fact there's enough peons so that we can start, buying buildings off you at creative ways, because and and he's like, yeah, let's get a whole group together and let's work out how to do it. And I thought, great, because the two other deals that I've got are basically off market, chitter chattering to people, finding out their problems, seeing how I can overcome them, and I keep reinforcing I do not have money to put down for you, so it has to be zero down creative. That's the only way, because it's it's not hard to buy these buildings. It's really hard to rehab them, because you can't really estimate the rehab cost, no matter how, well, I can't.
Yeah,
Not until I get myself a construction partner,
sure.
because there's always something,
Yeah.
always something you can't estimate.
Yeah, you can't. There's always something, and you never know, right? You never know what's behind a wall, whatever it is, right? The troubleshooting, all you could do is find solutions to when it happens. But that's awesome that happened, because I believe what you brought a new energy, right? You brought a new energy that kind of transformed people's what they felt about what's going on. They're open to tell you, hey, this is what's been going on, and this is why this is what's going on, literally. And you kind of change that parameter to maybe create opportunities, right, to revitalize let's say this said sector of this said town. So again, it's just that energy that you bring, and once that project is completed, they're going to be able to see a vision, right, of where you want to go. So I believe that there's going to be more opportunities, again, because you kind of set the tone, right?
Absolutely. And then you align yourself with other people who want to do this. And I mean, one of my indicators for whether a town, I was looking for what I call signals of it's not all my risk, and
Yeah.
I like a trendy coffee shop. We've got a trendy coffee shop. We got a bit of hope. And I love to see artists in pop-up shops, because that's the beginning. That's what they call meanwhile
Very
you.
true. It's very true everywhere, because I could tell you my experiences in New York. My
Yeah.
experiences in New York are when a place is transforming, you see artists, and you see, in my neighborhoods, you see thrift shops.
Yes.
So you see artists, thrift shops, and coffee shops. That's the beginning of transformation. And let's say when that happens, then let's say bigger money is more viable to come into a neighborhood, because things have been filtered out, let's say, by the artist, by that first influx of new people, right? So it's kind of change. They're the first step. They're like the filter to change a neighborhood's complexion. And now, let's say, bigger money or bigger projects or opportunities open up for other people to do that. So I totally relate what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And they're the sort of pathfinders, and they
Yeah.
create this sort of street level energy. So
For
that
sure.
when you walk down those streets, you think, oh, look, loads are going on. Well, half of them aren't paying rent or on subsidized rent, but it feels lively. And that's what you want.
Just that perception. Again, art changes a lot in the neighborhood, right? Even murals, just visuals as well. It's just sometimes it's the simplest things. It's like walking past the bakery and you smell the bread baking. That changes perception. I think visually it does the same with art. So,
Exactly. And this is the other thing. The more I do of this, the more I'm realizing that real estate and marketing is going hand in hand. I did this YouTube channel, and I just interviewed my YouTube channel. The first 10 videos or whatever are just interviewing retailers in Palatka. And when you scratch the surface, there's so much going on. Like there's the quilt shop lady who employs 8 people making quilts, and a lot of other stuff. Anyway, this guy reached out to me in his 30s, buying his first house, said, I'm looking at Palatka, and is it a good place to live? And I was like, of course it is. Not thinking too much. I didn't really know. Anyway, he eventually contacted me, and I did a little interview with him on my channel. And I asked him, what gave you the confidence to move to Palatka? And he said, your YouTube channel.
oh my goodness. Wow.
I know. And that made me think, you know what? I am going to, I'm going to, I'm going to do a lot more of this promoting towns, because there's so many people who are slagging the town off. The locals go, it's terrible, it's this, it's that. You know what? It's the way people go on about it. You would think it was some like crazy, gang-ridden, knife-wielding. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a bit dull, and
Yeah.
it's not hard to fix. That's my take on it.
No, absolutely. And what you bring is attention and attraction, right?
Yeah,
through your content that you provide, that you would not even think that it would give that impact, right? You would not know until you would have that conversation with the locals. So I
yeah,
think that's a great method, a great style, just to kind of connect with the locals, to kind of tell you what's really going on, and it's actually more
yeah.
here going on than meets the eye,
Oh,
right?
they're all, yes.
Right. So it's just awakening these spirits, right? That you saw they've been in the lull. But that's amazing. I love that, how you creating these new opportunities. Now let's get into your struggles. Let's go to the pits of hell, and let's see where have your failures been, and what have you overcome, and what were the lessons learned, and what can you impart some words of wisdom for whoever's listening.
So I suppose the worst struggle for me was, in line with a lot of people in real estate, was 2006, 7, 8, whenever it hit you.
Yep.
And I had a couple of rentals and my main home hooked up to my neck. I'd just come out of my 10 years of working with homeless, earning no money. And I was like, I'm going to earn some big money, and I'm going to spend it all in real estate. I'm going to borrow up to the hilt. Everything will be fine. Get the champagne out. Whew, didn't take long. And I was just like, I'm not losing my home. I'm not losing. Just everything came to a crushing halt, and it was just scary. And I suppose, looking back, the only how I got through it, myself and my husband, was we just said, are we okay today? Are the bailiffs knocking at the door? No. Are the bankruptcy courts ringing? No. Do we have enough money for what we need today? And with 3 kids, just about. And then we say, put your boots on and go to work. And we sort of head down, boots on, go to work, and don't sit there in like, I don't know what to do. Everything's so big. The world's crashing. It's a great recession. It's almost as bad as the Depression. Shut up. Get out of bed, do your thing, go to bed. And then, a year later, you look up and go, we got through it.
Yeah, that's great perspective to have, like, just to make it an everyday thing. Like you said, it's not the end of the world. Like, there's not crashing on us, right? So, but those people do struggle with those things. They let a mountain become something out of a molehill, right? they just get overwhelmed with anticipation, and they foresee things that are not happening, and they conjure up stuff in their head, and all of a sudden there's a cloud of anxiety hovers above them and they can't get rid of. But that's great perspective. Like you said, you kind of, this is not happening, this is not happening, and this is not happening. So we're okay, actually, right?
Okay.
It's
We're
not as
okay
bad as
now.
it's not as bad. No one's knocking, right? Yet. So we're good. Let's move forward. And that's great perspective, right? Just, like every day, that just get the best out of every day, literally.
Exactly. And eventually, you kind of, in the day, you kind of forget, oh, we're living in this terrible time. I do remember though sitting in the office in London and going, we can't make the rent. And they were brutes. There's no mercy in London, the London office market. And we were like, if we can't come up with this money today, because we're at the end of they're going to do what's called a winding up notice, which is like so easy. It's cost about $30 for them to put a thing in the court and start a winding up notice, which just, everything will come crashing down. And we got a check in that day that had sales tax on it, and sales tax, it's value added tax, was 17.5%, and that's 17.5%, which we of course had forgotten about because we were in stress mode and forgot that sales tax would be added to it. That was enough to just pay that rent, that month's rent, and that was it. We got through. We got through another one. We still owe. We have to pay the sales tax back, but we'll worry about that when they're screaming at the door.
Wow. Again, right? You just look back at those times and say, "Wow, we got over them," right? And
Exactly.
it's just another layer of toughness that I can handle this, right? I can get through this. I've had that experience. I know how to navigate these issues. And again, in real estate, we're problem solvers. This is kind of
Yeah.
a kind of what we do, right? One problem solved, next one next, right? Where's the next one coming from, right? And it's also what I call a journey of self-discovery through real estate, right?
It is. I really believe that's what we're here for in life. Whatever we choose to be in, everything is a growth opportunity, and nothing is for nothing. Everything is our opportunity to either, make our lives harder and other people's harder, or to learn to grow and go, you know what? I'm not here really to achieve buying a building and getting an IRR of X. I'm here to achieve learning to do that while making this life meaningful and enjoyable, and not just one long hardship and drudgery.
Yeah, that's a great segue. Growth, right? And I usually at this point have a segment called "The Makings of a Hero," right? Where is it that you want to go? Where is it you want to see your business? Where you forecast your place in the industry, and how you're going to provide service for others as well.
What a lovely segue, Mando. I want to really take this small town revitalization by the scruff of its neck. And I want to get really good at it in an American context. And I have this half-baked idea of, I would love to help everybody grow at the same time. So the thing that drove me into this was not being able to participate in equity. When I did those 60 billion, there's so many stories in that of how we won people this stuff with our great insights and team arrangement and all the rest. And then you're like, yeah, thanks, Anne. See you around. I thought some of the people I'm working with now that I'm talking to about buying their buildings, thought, what if I kept part of their equity in? What if they did me creative finance, I held part of their equity, and in X years, they got some of the benefit of that. Now, I don't know if I want to, I'm just exploring that, but I love that idea of, I grow through taking risk, they grow by taking risk with me and selling to me, and it's alternative to banks, which makes me very happy.
Sure.
I would love to get good at that. I would love to work in partnerships to do what I'm doing is technically called incremental development, which is considered okay, but not as good as sort of scale development. I want to but I want to be really careful who I partner with to do scale development. So that is, we would take blocks at a time. We'd take small parts of cities at a time and do it our way with the, really good people, really good capital, patient capital, and benefiting local people who want to co-risk with us. So that's what I want to do on the real estate front. And on the education front, I'm doing these 2-day workshops where we're sort of coming up with, there's lots of easy stuff I can teach people, like how to select your town, how to select your building, what you need in your team, some of the creative finance stuff. But there's some hard stuff as well, like, is there a way of doing it differently? I don't know, so there's lots of opportunity for curiosity and exploration. It's an evolving space, and I love that.
Sure. Again, it's like water. It's very fluid. Again, right? Things change as you go again. And this is part of the journey, right? You might have an idea, you envision this is the direction. All of a sudden you had to pivot, right? These things happen. But I think you're with the message that you received by your content, that someone kind of gave you edified you, or what you were doing, right? I think you connect that component with the actual action and tell that story and get out there to the masses. I think that's when it will resonate to others to see, wow, they see some people need to see with their eyes, right?
Yeah.
So, and you're the one with the vision. So I think your vision and connecting it with the content will provide others to actually see what you're doing, and then maybe want to connect with you and grow out that mission to revitalize small towns across America.
Oh, well, I would love that, Mando. And you know what? I feel really confident that I will, because I don't feel it's really even just my vision. I'm just kind of bringing something into life that's so obviously there. And the reason why I know this is when you do this. So it's the first time I was ever involved in this was doing that, working with homeless people. And that social enterprise just resonated with so many people. And that was nothing to do with me. I was just a part of this. I just played my part.
Yeah.
And I can sort of feel it again. This belongs to everyone. We just do our bits and stay in our lanes and get out of our lanes and work it out. And that's how it happens. And that's why it feels really exciting.
Yeah, you just happen to be the spark.
Yeah.
Somebody plays the role of the spark, and probably that's kind of your role, to be the spark, right? So maybe that's you, right, Sparky?
Love us.
But yeah, everyone plays their part, and now is making the mission go, right?
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful to have you. Is there any parting words that you would like to tell people who want to be interested in your projects, and also tell us about your social media content and where they can find you?
Right. Thank you, Mando. I'm on YouTube as Anne McNamara 007, and the same on Insta. And I think the same on Facebook, or it's just Anne McNamara. And my content is about small towns and my journey in it. And what I'd like to say to people is just do it. Just do what your soul is telling you to. That is your job.
Incredible. Thank you, Anne, for coming on. I appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing your journey in the future.
Thanks a million, Mando. Lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.